Remember the clip that I sold? One of the first ones that came out right after 1.32 update did, where I sold all the Tomahawks in a pack, and how I was trying to pull out my Henry Dale Jr. by never winning a blocking tons. That still sounds bad. You know how Dale Jr. always wins those restrictor plate races by doing all the sweeping? That. I don't really know how to word that in a nice way, but yeah, that. He did that when he raced. But that. I was doing that. And I messed up and I wrecked because I couldn't really tell the other car was behind me. Yeah, that. One of the things y'all might or might not have noticed about that race is the speeds. They were somewhat slow. And I'm going to keep it by showing it that way. For a reason. Just analyzing the replay itself. This is from the direct capture, not from YouTube, but essentially the same thing. I mean, it's going well. There's draft that's working. As y'all saw, that car in second was pulling on me because I'm the leader. So I had to get in its way to actually block it. And yeah, that worked. So then it gave me a slight bump draft because I did block it. And then I get a slight bit more lead, which slowed second down. So then third comes up and gets slight draft off me and side draft and all that as well. So then it tries. And then I go over there to block, blah, blah, blah. That looks all fine and dandy, doesn't it? That's working as it should. But another thing that you might be able to notice by looking too, not about how the cars are racing, but the cars themselves, is this. On this. Meaning, the flaps to increase aerodynamic efficiency, meaning turn better and all that with more downforce, are up on a massive long straightaway. No turning involved. Yeah, there's a little bit of turning depending on where you go to try to get by someone, or if I'm the leader going to block, whatever. But no physical turns in the track. Just turning if you need to block or pass or whatever is all the turns involved. Meaning they should definitely be down here. This is the biggest situation of all in which they should be down because it's both high speeds and drafting. Meaning doubly having those flaps up or hurting. Because you're not getting a clean flow of air while in the draft, and just in general those are up, so therefore the speeds are slower because it's like having the roof flaps up essentially on a NASCAR. Yes, it keeps you on the ground more, it keeps you more stable, but you're not going to go as fast with those up, so it doubly hurts when you're in the draft at RadX with those up. And yes, these are AI cars I'm saying. The car that I have is the one in front. I also have mine up. And I can't do anything about that. There is no way on a controller to put the flaps down on a Tomahawk. That's downright game-breaking for the Tomahawk on this track. But it's not just that. You know how PD made a big deal about getting the F1 in the GT Sport? Yeah, that's cool. Then we have tracks they can race on over F1 tracks, like Nürburgring GP and all that, but yeah, you can't use the curves on it. You know, the push-to-pass thing? Just the general curves with the battery that you do with the regenerative braking on it? Yeah, you can't use it on a controller. It just doesn't exist. It's just there. Supposedly there's some way they automated it in there or something, but I don't see it at all with the Tomahawk. Granted, it's a different system. For Tomahawk, it's an aerodynamic thing. For an F1, it's a power generation thing, but essentially it's still the same button. And also, the thing that happened with the F1 that, yes, they did fix, but yes, it did happen, is because on a controller you can't actually map a button to control its curves. It was broken at the beginning of the game, and when the fuel ran out, all of the curves stepped in, and those F1s could go 400 miles an hour or whatever. Y'all might or might not remember that glitch. That was fixed, but this in general is not just glitch. This is apparently how PD thinks it should be. Because all this far into the game, we still, on a controller, cannot map a button for what would essentially be Nitro. Yes, Gran Turismo Sport does not have nitro. But in the real driving simulator, you would think they could figure out a way in which you could control curves. That's the future of racing. There's no denying that. Probably within, I don't know, 10 years or so, I would say F1s will be darn near, if not completely, electronic. Whether it's electronic in terms of how all that's managed, meaning the driver doesn't actually manage it anymore and just the car knows more than the driver and all that, or it's just a straight up electric powered, meaning there's no actual need for like fuel conservation and all that because it's by the battery, and the battery will conserve fuel under braking and all that. That's the future. There's no denying this. But you physically cannot do this in GT Sport with a controller. And that's not just a disadvantage because it hurts a big part of the game. And ultimately the future of the game in any general racing that exists. It also makes wheel users have so much of a big advantage. And yes, this has been in the game since launch, and the only time I've actually mentioned this in depth is this video. And because I'm mentioning this now, is because of Route X. Wheels have the least amount of advantage in general at Route X, and there's not that many cars that use curves and or flaps now, and there's no nitro in GT Sport. But that's still two bad things. It gives wheel users that much of a more unfair advantage when wheel users in general are faster just because wheel is the real thing. Wheel is real. They have steering wheels in a real car with just more control, more precise movements, the general things. That's an advantage in general. There definitely shouldn't be an advantage because you can put the flaps down with a wheel and you can't with a controller. You can use curves in a wheel, but can't with a controller. Yet that's still how it is. And yeah, it may look bad on me. I may look somewhat hypocritical that the first time I actually mention this is when we get Route X. But coming with Route X is also new physics. It hasn't been discussed all that much, but the physics changed a bit again. For better or worse, it's not a huge change. It's not as big as the last physics change. For me, it's roughly the same. I can't fully tell that big of a difference yet. But, you know, people who might be able to tell, the people actually competing for tangible trophies and stuff. In the next main FI GT Championships, which starts in less than 2 weeks. Yeah, new physics right when the new championships start with not too much time at all to get used to them. And we don't know the track and car list yet, so that you can't even really practice on what to know exactly what's going to be there. You only get to guess. And now, they're like usual, there's still basically zero chance of a controller user being able to qualify. Not just because of the wheel has more precise inputs. There's also the curves thing, and the flaps down thing, and I'm also not just saying this only because I'm a controller user. I'm saying this because I know there's really fast controller users out there who can legitimately compete. As much as I like to brag and say that I'm fast in specific situations and stuff, with a wheel I still would not be qualifying for those events. I would say ultimately, in a top 24 Superstars race, which I would rarely ever make, and would need everything to go my way to get there at first, I would finish like 23rd, 22nd at best, maybe. With a wheel, I'd probably finish like 18th or something. So I'm not even saying this because it would necessarily benefit me tons. But the leaderboards don't actually show wheel versus controller anymore. This is the first game in which you just straight up can't control a default nitro button. Yes, there is no default nitro, but even in GT5, which had no nitro, there was still a button that got mapped to it if you wanted to use it. There wasn't much curves. I think just F1 2010 might have been the only thing that had curves then, in that game. But there was somewhat of a flap down type thing. Some cars had it. Seems like if I remember correctly, the Mitsubishi HSC 1989 had flaps. You could see them quite a bit when you're going around turns. I think that's what that one's called. Hopefully y'all know what I'm talking about, but I think that's correct. I'm sure there's a lot of other cars out there with flaps too, so that's the first one that came to mind. Other than the one on screen, which was that GT5 on release. But anyway, that still hasn't been fixed in this game. And PD's still not showing a leaderboard wheel versus controller. Is that a conspiracy like I've said in other videos? Okay. Some other things might be conspiracies I truly do believe. No, this isn't a conspiracy. PD's is lazy in that aspect. These are FIA races. Probably more than anything it deals with what the FIA says to what PD says. If the FIA doesn't complain about it, PD's probably not going to fix it. Because ultimately, in the real cars, in real life, yes, you're going to be using a steering wheel anyway. So those who have controller knowledge, and barely, if not at all, use a wheel, and they do make it, will be flawed racing with the real cars and stuff. But we're not to that point yet. We still aren't getting those tangible racing licenses like we were said that we were supposedly going to get. So in the meantime, can't PD at least make controllers competitive until then? Because yes, I understand, you probably have experience using a racing wheel in the racing video game that gets you to race a real car. But you still can't race in a real car yet, with this particular thing. Granted, Igor Fraga won the FIA GT Championship Season 1 for the Nations Cup. Also won the McLaren thing, and now it's apparently going to be racing a tangible car. But that whole McLaren series didn't have GT Sport in it at all. But yet the GT Sport driver still won that event. Yes, Igor Fraga is an amazing driver and races in real life too. But it still was the GT Sport driver that beat everyone who raced in all those other games. And GT Sport was not even a part of any of those games, and that driver still won. Yes, that driver does use a wheel. But what I'm saying is GT Sport has a good enough cast of drivers. Maybe it's just from popularity. Maybe GT Sport truly is just more competitive and is a better ground in doing it. But it definitely does help because it's more popular. There's no denying that. But either way, GT Sport has a good enough cast of drivers where even with the drawbacks of the realism, the GT Sport drivers can still be competitive on a tangible level. Why should we hinder a game that has the capabilities of getting real-world drivers, and has really since 2008, not just with GT Sport, but GT Academy sold success. Lucas Ordonez won tangible things. He's probably the best of that crop of drivers from GT Academy, and he's actually even sort of kind of retired now. GT Academy's been going on so long, he's kind of retired now. He's moved on from Nissan. He actually did the commentary for the new Gran Turismo events, for the FIA ones. I don't exactly know how that works in contractual obligations and stuff. Nissan GT Academy versus the general FIA events. That seems to have a lot of times with both Toyota and Mercedes, and not so much with Nissan. And also Red Bull too, but I think Red Bull's not tied in with their F1 team from what I can tell. The Red Bull is a general brand and not their F1 team. They were story getting off the subject, but I think y'all can still see what I'm saying. Gran Turismo is hindering itself, not having an equal playing field for everyone, and it's sold at this point that there's so many players in that field that we may as well make it equal because it's profitable for them too. I would assume PD is making money off their looking like it's going to be real world racing stuff. I assume they made money off of GT Academy, though it has stopped now. I think the only reason it stopped because the FIA, the official company, got involved. And not just Nissan, the official racing company, and not just the manufacturer that makes racing cars. I would say, given that the official company that does racing got involved, means it was probably profitable to begin with. And now that the official company's involved too, it's that much more regulated and should be that much more realistic. But in the time being, while it's downright impossible for controller users to compete with the wheels, while a wheel does make the racing the most realistic, until the actual racing can happen, meaning the real life racing, the controller users should not be penalized. There's still the other miscellaneous stuff like the penalties and the track limits and stuff that they've been trying to fix since day one of the game that still aren't very good. But they've been trying to fix them. They've put in a concerted effort and have said stuff about them. Something as simple as curves not working has never even been fixed or addressed. Curves is the future, and if Gran Turismo is going to be the future, which as of now it still looks like it has a chance to be, PD's going to have to make it to where Gran Turismo has a true chance of being that future. And yes, this is a fairly minor issue now. There's not that many people competing for the actual championships who are a controller driver, and there's not that many cars that use curves or have the flaps. But there's only going to be more as time goes on. More people are going to want to race as they see these events work. Everyone can use a controller. And just the general fact of more cars are going to be made with the electrical devices, whether it meaning electronically getting the flaps down, electricity allowing for curves, whatever it may be. The sooner PD implements a way to where curves can be on, flaps can be on and stuff, the closer racing is going to be in general for the FI events. And yes, while that may make it a bit unrealistic when the tangible racing happens for the trophy and stuff, there is no tangible real-life racing cars yet. When that happens, the previous champions hopefully get told enough in advance where they can practice with wheels, and at that point to be able to have access to wheels whether they win initially with a controller wheel or not. I would hope someone would hook them up with a good racing wheel if they've already sold the talent to win. But in the meantime, you still can't race tangible cars yet with Gran Turismo. So, why penalize now when there's still time to change? But now is the time to change. PD needs to start planning this stuff out. And until they do, it's only going to gradually get worse. And that ain't worth yeehaw. Now it still can't be changed to be worth yeehaw, but till it does get changed, it most definitely ain't.